Oh my good lord! I've been your tenant and your father's tenant these fourscore years.
Away, get thee away, good friend. Be gone. They comforts can do me no good at all. They may hurt.
You cannot see your way.
I have no way, and therefore want no eyes. I stumble when I saw, full if distant seen. Our means secure us, and our mere defects prove our comedies. O dear son Edgar, the fruit of the abused father's wharf. I but live to see their in my touch, but I'll say I had eyes again.
How now? Who's there? This poor Mad Tom. Fellow, where goes?
Is it a beggar?
Madman and beggar too.
He has some reason, else he could not beg. I, I the last night's storm I such a fellow saw, which made me think of man or worm. My son came to end into my mind, and yet my mind was then a scarce friends with him. I heard more sense. As flies to wanton boys, are we to thy gods. They kill us for their sport.
Okay, excellent. So we'll stop there for a second. Okay, so Edgar is in the heath alone, of course, and he sees that pretending to be insane actually does bring its advantages, right? That he's been able to, by being the lowest and most dejected thing of fortune, he's been able to survive. He's hoping for something better, and hopefully that things will change for him and start to look like he'll be able to remedy his situation. That's what everybody wants, sort of to fix things that have gone in chaotic ways. And of course, an old man has to happen upon him right now with Gloucester. Now, I want you to know that Edgar decides he's going to stay in character for the time being. That's part of an element of the plot. It just has to happen this way. But I think it wouldn't be the right time to reveal himself to Gloucester right now. So when he sees his father, you can imagine the pain that he feels by seeing his distress. And Gloucester has really changed from someone who was superstitious and looked at fate and the signs in a much different way than he sees things now. He looked at things maybe in more optimistic ways, and now he only sees the world from a very pessimistic view. I mean, he doesn't really see the world anymore, but you know what I mean, metaphorically, of course. So when he's trying to reject the people around him because he prefers to be an outcast, he has, knowledge rather than illusions of admiration. So he's been very disillusioned by his experience. Okay, and you see that unlike Lear right now, he has made a major transformation in his life. So when the old man is trying to lead him, Gloucester says, "I have no way and therefore want no eyes. I stumbled when I saw." I think that what does this really mean? Well, it's a play on seeing and misseeing. Okay, when he had the ability to see, he couldn't see reality. Now that he's blinded, he has great insight. It's classic. It's Oedipal. It goes back to the beginning of time. Okay, and he regrets his past mistakes and acknowledges his blindness, his metaphorical blindness that he now realizes because he is actually physically blind. And of course, Edgar says, the worst has not happened as long as we can comfort ourselves by thinking that it has already happened. So this is worse than what he even thought that it was going to be. So conveniently, the old man is going to link up Gloucester with Edgar, and Edgar's going to be the one that's going to lead him eventually to Dover. Okay, so people tend to see a lot more when they lose their eyes, of course, and I mean that's how it works. That's the same thing that happened to Oedipus. He couldn't see the reality of his life until he blinded himself. Then suddenly he gains this, metaphorical insight. So, now also, talking about fate in a more positive way, now this is probably one of his more famous lines. He says, as flies to wanton boys are we to the gods, they kill us for their sport. So now he looks at himself as a victim of fate, versus someone who had any type of control whatsoever, right? That the gods play with human beings just as cruelly as little boys pull the wings off of flies. So these asides are important because Edgar is obviously telling the audience that he knows this is his father. He feels bad about seeing his father like this, but he's got to maintain his composure and he has to maintain his disguise. Okay? So let's carry on.
Is that the naked fellow?
Aye, my lord.
Dan, Preet, get thee away. If for my sake thou wed or to take us, hence a mill or twain, I'd wait toward Dover. Do it for ancient love, and bring some covering for this naked soul, which I entreat to lead me.
Alack, sir, he is mad.
This the time's plague. When madmen lead to blind, do I bid thee, or rather do their pleasure. Above the rest, be gone.
I bring him the best apparel that I have. Come, come on, what will?
Good. So it just basically is like, come on it, what will. So thank God Gloucester's going to get this poor guy some clothes to lead him to the cliffs of Dover. Now, when Gloucester says, or the old man says, Alaxer, he's mad. Like, I can't leave this mad person to lead you to Dover. And Gloucester says, 'tis the time's plague. So that's the trouble these days, that madmen lead the blind. So the idea of madness and corruption in the kingdom. Okay? Good. Let's carry on.
Sir, naked fellow. Come hither, fellow. Knowest thou the way to Dover? Here, take this purse, thou whom the heavens plagues have humbled to all strokes that I am wretch, makes thee the happier heavens deal so still. Let the superfluous and lust-died man, that slaves your ordinance that will not see because he does not feel your power quickly. So distribution should undo excess, and each man have enough. Thou know Dover? There is a cliff whose high and bending head looks fearfully in the confined deep, and bring me but to the very brim of it, and I'll repair the misery thou dost bear with something rich about me. From that place I shall no longer leading need.
Okay, so a couple of things. Let's look at lines 66 to 70, where he's talking a little bit about slaves of ordinance and heaven's plagues. So it's kind of like a bit of maybe a socialist rant, okay? Blindness has actually brought a lot of insight to Gloucester and insight to other human problems, okay? So it's kind of reinforced by Lear earlier, where he says, I have taken too little care of these things. This sense of punishing those with a rich lifestyle because it blinds them to the needs of others. We see that this is repeated a number of times, that there's a lot of sense of privilege, and the privilege allows you to ignore the downtrodden. And it's a pretty overt commentary, I think, that Shakespeare is making here. You don't see it quite as much in the other plays, but there's a real sense of looking at people like poor Tom and saying how much they're really been completely dejected, rejected, and ignored by society. So they're all kind of making that realization that they've been too self-absorbed in their own issues and problems for too long, right? Where you're talking about legitimacy or illegitimacy, you're talking about land and property, and none of that means anything if you end up betrayed, blind, and loveless, right? So now, like, once they finally have those things stripped from them, then they can start empathizing with how other people feel, like, on a daily basis. So some pretty powerful things coming from here. Now, why exactly does Gloucester want to go to the cliffs of Dover? He says, from that place I shall know leading need.
Cordelia?
Good thinking, but he's not going there for Cordelia. He's
King Lear.
not even Lear. Now,
Poor
don't
Tom.
forget, he feels like his wings have been plucked off his body. He feels like he is a victim of fate. And from the top of the cliff, he shall know leading need. What does Gloucester intend to do?
Is he gonna kill himself?
Yeah, that's what he's going to try to do. He's in so much pain that this for him is just a better way to go. So, and then Edgar, of course, has to maintain character and say that poor Tom shall lead thee. So now we're switching back to Goneril and Edmund. Now, I was alluding to this. You can't have a good tragedy without a good love triangle. So here it is. Goneril and Edmund have become very friendly, but Oswald describes a change in the nature of Goneril's husband, Albany. Albany expresses his horror at the treatment Lear has received, and there is a quarrel between husband and wife, which was only a matter of time. And I think we talked about this earlier, that I said Albany is going to be one of those characters that is definitively a natural and good character and abhors what his wife has done to his father-in-law, the king. So news is brought of Cornwall's death. Cornwall, Regan's husband. So remember when he fought with the first servant yesterday because he tried to interrupt them blinding Gloucester in the other eye, and the servant fought him because he said, like, you're taking this too far. So he ended up dying from his injuries. So news is brought of Cornwall's death and the blinding of Gloucester, and Goneril begins to be jealous of her sister. So it's interesting to see that these women are going from very power hungry to then very jealous of each other, and they go from having all the power in the world to being obsessed and fighting over one man. So let's read.
Welcome, my lord. I marvel our mild husband not met us on the way. Now where's your master?
Madam, within. But never man so changed. I told him of the army that was landed. He smiled at it. I told him you were coming. His answer was, the worst, of Gloucester's treachery, and of the loyal service of his son. When I informed him, then he called me sot, and told me I had turned the wrong side out. What most he should dislike seems pleasant to him. What like offensive?
Then shall you go no further. It is the cowish terror of his spirit that dares not undertake. He'll not feel wrongs which tie him to an answer. Our wishes on the way may prove effect. Back, Edmund, to my brother. Hasten his musters and conduct his powers. I must change arms at home and give the distaff into my husband's hand. This trusty servant shall pass between us. Ere long you are like to hear, if you dare venture in your own behalf, a mistress's command. Wear this, spare speech. Decline your head. This kiss, if it durst speak, would stretch thy spirits up into the air, conceive and fare thee well.
Yours in the ranks of death.
My most dear Gloucester.
Okay,
Oh,
sorry, Tanya, do you mind if I stop there just before you do the rest of it? Okay, so a couple of things here. Now, we're not quite sure, but Albany knows that Gloucester is not a traitor and that Edmund was not acting as a loyal subject. We're not quite sure how he finds out this information, okay? But I think that the goings on have really affected Albany, and now that he knows Edmund was evil, Gloucester is blind, and that Regan was behind it, it's all making him feel a little bit sick, okay? So that's important. And essentially what's going to happen is you're going to see the fight between Goneril and Albany is that she thinks that Albany doesn't have the guts, the courage, the manhood to do what needs to be done, whereas she does. But ironically, like, it's not what needs to get done. You're just acting. Well, basically, he calls her a few names, choice words, that you're acting like a monster. Like, this is beyond what anybody would ever anticipate could possibly happen. Okay? So there's that. Now, the second thing is, as she's talking to Edmund, she gives him a little something. And what does she give him? She says, wear this, spare speech, and gives him a favor. Decline your head, this kiss, if it durst speak, would stretch thy spirits up to the air. Conceive and fare thee well. So she gives him, basically it's like a little token, whether it's a little scarf or something. And it's her way of saying, like, this is from me to you. This is our secret little thing. And this is a sign of my favor, meaning her interest in him in an extramarital kind of way, okay? And his response is yours in the ranks of death. Okay, so until I die, and also it says, and in the enjoyment of sexual orgasm. So just so you know what Goneril and Edmund have been up to while Gloucester was being blinded. Okay, so now it also explains why she has such hostility towards Albany, because she's basically over him and much more interested in Edmund, who is like the up and comer.
My most dear Gloucester, oh, the difference of man and man! To thee a woman's services are due. A fool usurps my bed.
Madam, here comes my lord.
I have been worth the whistle.
Oh, Goneril, you're not worth the dust which the rude wind blows in your face. I fear a disposition, that nature which contempts its origin cannot be bordered certain in itself. She that herself will silver and disbrand from her material cap, perforce must wither and come to deadly use.
No more, the text is foolish.
Wisdom and goodness to the vile Timbala, hope savior but themselves. What have you done? Tigers, not daughters, and have you performed? A father and a gracious aged man, whose reverence even Hedlug bear with lift. Most barbarous, most degenerate. Have you matted? Could my good brother suffer you to do this? A man, a prince, by him so benefited. If that the heavens do not have their visible spirit, send quickly down to tame these wild offenses. It will come. Humanity must perforce prey on itself like monsters of the deep.
Okay, so Albany comes in and he's pretty disgusted. He says, you are not worth the dust which the rude wind blows in your face. Okay, now he says, I guess he's being a little preachy for her liking. She's not very interested in what he has to say. But he basically warns her when he says on lines 49 to 50, humanity must perforce prey on itself like monsters of the deep. In the margins, it says here, Albany warns that the violation of natural order will lead to cannibalism, just as fishes in the sea devour each other. So what does he mean by that? Like, are people going to actually start eating each other? Well, no, not in a literal way. But what does he mean by that? That the violation of natural order will lead to cannibalism, will lead to chaos.
Perhaps he means that those political members would start to try to top each other, bring each other down to be like the king, or just to gain power.
Right, and you know what? It's like a slippery slope where it snowballs into something that you can't control. Right? Okay, so he is pretty disgusted with her behavior, and she's going to clap back by calling him a bunch of names, like calling him a coward, other things, of course, gonna insult his manhood. That's like classic Shakespeare. All of these things to try to hurt him. Okay, so let's carry on, Goneril.
Milk-livered man, that bear'st a cheek for blows, a head for wrongs, who hast not in thy brows an eye discerning thine honour from thy suffering, that not knowest fools do those villains pity who are punished, ere they have done their mischief. Where's thy drum? France spreads his banners in our noseless land, with plumed helm thy state begins to threat, whilst thou, a moral fool, sits still and cries, Alack, why does he so?
See thyself, devil. Proper deformity shows not in the fiend so horrid as in woman.
O vain fool!
Thou change and self-cover thing, for shame, bemaster not thy feature. Were it my fittest to let these hands obey my blood, they're apt enough to dislocate and tear thy flesh and bones. However, thou art a fiend, a woman's shape doth shield thee.
Okay, so we've got a lot of comparison of, like the manhood and womanhood, and how these things sort of are stereotypically opposite in these situations, okay? So she does call him a coward, and she also references, if you look at fools do those villains pity who are punished, ere they have done their mischief. It says only fools feel sorry for those villains who are punished before they have performed their villainy. Goneril refers to Lear, implying that he is now in league with France and a threat to their kingdom. Now that is actually that's actually true, right? They have an English kingdom, even though Cordelia is, I guess, the beloved daughter of the English king. She also is from France. So you want a French invasion in your kingdom? Like, that's not going to look good either. So Albany, big misogyny moments, absolutely. But at the same time, like, is he woman hating or is he just Goneril hating because she's turned into a pretty evil woman? But I think what bothers him so much, or what would bother men, is that you wouldn't imagine a woman, right? He says proper deformity shows not in the fiend so horrid as in a woman. And also thy flesh and bones, however, thou art a fiend, a woman's shape doth shield thee. That she may look like a woman on the outside, but she's actually changed into a monster on the inside. And it's pretty hideous that her woman's physique is hiding the true devil that's inside. Being a woman is the only thing protecting her. Like, from him attacking her, deposing her, maybe, but I think he's also highly disturbed that a woman could be so diabolical. Tanya, go ahead.
Line 30 to 31, I know you mentioned it. Does it like have any significance to the play? Like when Albany's saying like you are not worth the dust, which like I know it's personification, but does it have any major significance or no?
I would just say that, I mean, he's calling her out right now for acting in such an uncivilized way. So I don't want you to worry too much about those one law, unless it's something that I've drawn your attention to specifically, like how sharper is a serpent's tooth than it is to have a thankless child. That is, with something like this, he's just calling her out for her very unnatural behavior, and that he's actually kind of afraid of what she's become.
So we should focus on the larger texts, right? Not like the one or two lines,
Yeah.
unless they're super
Yeah.
important.
If there's a few lines that you're not quite sure why they're important or what's there that is significant, that's not what we're looking for you to understand every line in the Shakespearean play, but just to understand the big ideas. So we've talked a lot about ingratitude and how that really bothers Lear. We've talked a lot about animal imagery, how the women are described as being wolves and being serpents and being pelicans and cuckoo birds, right? They're all given these very negative animal correlations, that they're acting in an animalistic way. So that's like the big ideas are more of what I want you to know than to understand the very minute details. Other than he's just saying to her that he's disgusted by her behavior and that she's turned into a monster. So that is a very long-winded Shakespearean way of him saying that to her. Okay?
Yes, okay, that makes sense. Thank you.
No problem.
Marry your manhood, Mew.
What news?
Oh my good lord, the Duke of Cornwall's dead, slain by his servant going to put out the other eye of Gloucester.
Gloucester's eyes.
A servant that he bred fled with remorse opposed against the act, bending his sword to his great master, who fled enraged, flew on him, the amongst them felled him dead, but not without that harmful strike which since have plagued him after.
This shows you're above, you justicers, that these are another crimes so speedily can venge. But oh, poor Gloucester, lost he other eye.
Both, my lord. This letter, madam, craves a speedy answer. 'Tis from your sister.
One way I like this well, but being widow and my Gloucester with her, may all the building and my fancy pluck upon my hateful life. Another way, the news is so tart, I'll read and answer.
Where was his son when they did take his eyes?
Come with my lady hither.
He is not here.
No, my good lord, I met him back again.
Knows he the wickedness?
Ay, my good lord, 'twas he informed against him, and quit the house on purpose that their punishment might have the fairer course.
Gloucester, I live to thank thee for the love thou showest the king, and to revenge thy eyes. Come hither, friend, tell me what more thou you knowest.
Okay,
No,
so
sorry.
okay, thank you very much. So after Albany calls her a monster, then she dismisses his masculinity, okay, by saying, marry your manhood, Mew. They find out that Cornwall's dead. So why is that important? Well, Regan is now a widow. So what is Goneril thinking about now?
Taking the kingdom to herself?
You would think that's what she would want to do. But no. Goneril goes from being very focused on maintaining her part of the kingdom and ousting Lear. Now that she finds out that Cornwall is dead, she becomes very fearful that her sister will now be able to have a relationship with Edmund, who she wants to have a relationship with, right? So that's going to present a bit of a problem here. So if you look at the aside, and this is right after the messenger gives her the letter, it's on line 84. There's one way I like this well, but being widow and my Gloucester with her, may all the building in my fancy pluck upon my hateful life. Another way the news is not so tart. So her life will then be hateful because Regan will be able to have Edmund, while Goneril will be left with her husband. So that is now what her new focus is. I want Edmund, and I don't want Regan to have him. Okay, back to Albany. So he finds out that Cornwall is dead because Gloucester's eyes were ripped out. So when he finds this out, he's obviously horrified. And he says, this shows you are above, you just sirs, that these are nether crimes so speedily can venge. Okay, so he's looking here at the idea of divine punishment of crimes in the human world. And he is telling Regan that, like, you cannot get away with this, that this is going, sorry, he's telling Goneril that justice will be served for this. You're not going to get away with doing this. And he does probe the messenger to find out more information by the end. Like, did Edmund know that this was going to happen? And it is revealed that he left so this could happen without him even being there. So now Albany has a lot of ammunition to use to try to fix the wrongs in the world. And he also shows his fealty to Lear. Okay, so he says that he is going to, Gloucester, I live to thank thee for the love thou showedst the king, and to revenge thine eyes. So Albany is going to emerge as the justicer, the one who is going to help to restore order. Okay. Act 4, Scene 3. Finally, we're getting to some of the good stuff. So they're at a French camp near Dover. The gentleman who was sent to meet Cordelia in Act 3, Scene 1 has returned to Kent and described Cordelia's reaction to the news of her sister's cruelty and her father's sufferings. Kent, still in disguise, leads the way to his master. This scene is not present in the folio text of the play. I don't know if the online version is Quattro or folio. That's why I prefer reading the Quattro. That's why the Oxford ones are really good. Okay, so I'm going to need someone. Who's our Kent? Do we have Kent today?
Me.
Okay, perfect. Do we have a gentleman? Or can we have a gentleman?
I'll read the part, miss.
Thank you. Okay, I'm going to need someone to be Cordelia. We're finally going to see Cordelia again.
Could I be Cordelia?
Absolutely, thank you. Okay, Tom, if you're a gentleman, would you also be a messenger?
Sure.
Thank you. Can somebody be the doctor?
I'll be that.
Thank you. Okay. Then do we have Regan? I'm going to need a Regan. Any takers for Regan?
Or you can go. It's okay.
Okay, Ryan, would you be Oswald, and Sarah, you could be Regan? Does that work?
Yeah.
Sounds good.
Perfect. And then we still have a Gloucester and an Edgar, yes? Okay, perfect. Okay, so Kent, when you're ready.
Why the King of France is so suddenly gone back? No reason.
Something he left imperfect in the state, which since his coming forth is thought of, which imports to the kingdom so much fear and danger that his personal return was most required and necessary.
Who have you left behind him, General?
The Marshal of France, Monsieur Lafar.
Did your letters pierce the queen to any demonstration of grief?
Ay, sir. She took them, read them in my presence, and now and then an ample tear trailed down her delicate cheek. It seemed that she was the queen over her passion, who most rebel-like sought to be king over here.
Oh, then it moved her.
Not to a rage, patience and sorrow strove, who should express her good goodliest. You have seen sunshine and rain at once. Her smiles and tears were like a better way. Those happy smilets that played on her rip, right, ripe lips seemed not to know what guests were in her eyes, which parted then, as pearls from diamonds drop. In brief, sorrow will be us rarity most beloved, if all could so become it.
Made she no verbal question?
Faith, once or twice she heaved the name of father, pantingly forth, as if it pressed her heart. Cried sisters, sisters, shame of ladies, sisters, Kent, father, sisters, what is the storm, is the night? Let pity not believe it. There she shook the holy water from her heavenly eyes, and clamor moistened. Then away she started to deal with grief alone.
It is the stars above us, govern our conditions. Else one self-made and maker could not beget such different issues. You spoke not with her since?
No,
Was this before the king returned?
no sense.
Well, sir, the poor distressed Lear's out of town, who sometime in his better tune remembers what we are come about, and by no means will yell to see his daughter.
Why, good sir?
A sovereign's shame to so elbows him, his own unkindness, that stripped her from his benediction, turned her to foreign casualties, gave her dear rights to his dog-hearted daughters. These things sting his mind so venomously that burning shame detains him from Cordelia.
Alack, poor gentleman.
Of Albany's and Cornwall's powers, you her not?
'Tis so. They are afoot.
Well, sir, I'll bring you to our master Lear and leave you to attend him. So dear cause will in concealment wrap me up a while. When I am known aright, you shall not grieve letting me this acquaintance. I pray you go along with me.
Okay, thank you. So, Kent is checking in with the gentleman to get some feedback on how Cordelia reacted to the news she received about her father's treatment. Okay? And what's kind of interesting is the gentleman said that every now and then there'd be an ample tear trilled down her delicate cheek. But she never got in a rage. Her patience and sorrow strove who should express her goodliest. That going back to Act 1, she maintained emotion, the self-control of her emotion, okay? And he says that it made her seem even more lovely than she ever was. Does she still love Lear? Well, that's an excellent question. Let's talk a little bit about it. What evidence do we have here? Okay, so this is the gentleman describing when Ken says, like, what no verbal question, that she heaved the name of father pantingly forth, as if it pressed her heart, cried, sisters, sisters, shame of ladies, sisters, Kent, father, sisters, what, in the storm, in the night? Let pity not believe it. There she shook the holy water from her heavenly eyes, and then she left to deal with the grief alone. So these are, like, obviously it's a pre-Christian play, but look at the associations of Cordelia. Self-control, she's even more lovely than she was before, that her tears are referred to as holy water, her eyes are heavenly, she's described as having, as pearls from diamonds dropped. These are her eyes shining like diamonds, and her tears, they flowed like pearls. So if you couldn't get any more angelic, any more wholesome than Cordelia is right now, like, you can never be there. Does she still love Lear? She never stopped loving Lear. She's absolutely agonized by the treatment that he received. But we find out from Kent, Lear is in town. Why hasn't he gone to see her? Line 46 and 47, the answer is there.
He feels ashamed of himself.
Absolutely. It's his shame that has kept him away from Cordelia.
It's not only because of how he treated her, it's how he is now. Because now he's not the same person he was before. I mean, before, even then, he didn't really make the best decisions. So now when he's all like naked and all that, it's not a good look.
No, I'm sure that before he goes to see her that they would clean him up. Absolutely. But it does show that he's having moments of lucidity. He's not totally mad, because if he was mad, then he wouldn't know the difference. I think that it's the shame that he feels in rejecting her in the first place. That's what's painful for him, and why he doesn't think that he can actually go see her. Though he didn't go see Cordelia because he has to help King Lear. Who's that in reference to, Jeffrey?
I can't.
Right, exactly. So he just wants to know how Cordelia reacted to the news. Ken still hasn't seen her yet. He's maintaining himself with Lear, and we find out a little bit later that like there will be a reunion. Okay, so don't you worry about that. But at this point, he's too ashamed of his behavior and what he did to her to go see her. Okay. So then we find out, what about Albany and Cornwall's powers? And the gentleman said they are afoot, meaning that they're marching towards Dover. So he said, I'll bring you to our master Lear and leave you to attend him. And that's what's going to happen. So there's good reason that I should stay in disguise for a time. We are never told what Kent's cause could be. Probably he just doesn't want to reveal himself, because ultimately he is only there for loyalty and to protect Lear. So whether he's in disguise or not doesn't matter. And I don't know if Lear can really handle any more news. Okay, so it's 2 o'clock. I'm wondering if we take this time now for you all to do those the quote analysis, and that way we can start by taking it up first thing tomorrow, and we can finish Act 4. So does that work for everybody? I'd rather you have time to work on it in class than to work on it tonight, because I think like that's a lot of English for one day. So are you good to do those? Okay, perfect. So I'll be here if you need to check in, but I would like for you to try to tackle those 3 quotes on your own, and then tomorrow we will take them up and find out, all the different potential devices that you could find. If you want to write in paragraph format, you can, but if you want to just sort of analyze it in point form with a quotation and what it means, whether it's thematic significance, whether it's character revelation, a reference to fate, an image, etc. You can, it's whatever you feel comfortable with, okay? All right. So, yes.
Just want to ask in the test, can you write it in point form for like the devices?
No, I really need you to write in full sentences and in paragraphs.
Okay.
Now, if you wanted to do like some point form notes on your document and then, like write your paragraph, I'm not going to mark your point form stuff. I'll just mark your paragraph. But you're more than welcome to do notes to organize yourself on your document. That's fine by me.
Okay, thank you, miss.
No problem. Okay, I'm going to go take a quick bio break, so if you do need me, just give me a couple of minutes.